So this is one of the actions that's coming out of the Economic Recovery Group. It's also something the business agency has been trying to build on and pilot for a while. So we think there's a real opportunity here, a real market for the island to start growing on-island jobs, generate quite a lot of revenue for the island, for government, for people. And really it is about asking some of those technical questions about, well, what might this regulatory regime look like?
This is a year and a half later than the public consultation, gauging those views on whether medicinal cannabis should be brought in here, and as well hemp cultivation as well. What's happened in that year and a half to get to what seems to be yet another consultation?
So the original consultation was more about should we allow this on the island more generally, and I think the response to that was yes, overwhelmingly we should be allowing the production and export of medicinal cannabis. And so over the last year and a half, there's been a lot of work going on inside the business agency to pull some of this stuff together, drafting the regulations, engaging with the UK to make sure what's being proposed might be acceptable to them, looking at the various different types of regulatory regime that might suit us. And actually, it's just taking a very long time because it is a horrendously complex area when you get into the detail. So moving from that first principles to actually what does it look like on the ground has taken quite a while. Unfortunately, coronavirus kind of got in the way of some of that work, so there has been a bit of a knock-on delay. The original plan was to launch this consultation a couple of months ago, but there has been a little bit of a delay because of that. But we are where we are, I suppose. It's definitely a positive step. It's definitely moving forward, and really I'd encourage anybody who has a stakeholder interest really in this, in industrial hemp farming or in the production or export of medicinal cannabis, really they're the people we're trying to reach out to with this consultation.
If it was to be established in this way, this wouldn't be for domestic sales. This would be for a commercial export purely and only. So why couldn't it be sold here? Is that a more primary legislation kind of issue?
No, it's just that it's a slightly different question. So the first question is about can you produce it? Can you regulate that growth and production? And actually, is there a market for the export of this? And we know there's a market worldwide. Is the Isle of Man an attractive proposition? Yes, we're hearing it could be, and with a flexible regulatory regime in place, which is something generally we're quite good at on the island, we think there's a potential USP here for us. So that's the first question, is actually, are we a good place to produce it? The second question about, well, actually medicinal use, that's more a question for health, more a question for the health department, for GPs, for prescribers to deal into that. To actually, is that going to be, is that good for us? Is it bad? Should we be doing it? Do we follow the UK? That is almost an entirely separate set of questions. This consultation is dealing primarily and solely with that production and export issue. If we can get the regulatory regime up and running for that, that will be a big step forward, I think. And then perhaps the next step is to say, well, if we are regulating the production and export from the island, the next step may very well be to say, well, actually, what about the potential health benefits, and should we be looking at a regime for that as well? But like I say, that will be it's a totally separate issue.
The global markets you touched on, are there any particular areas in which you think it would be best pointed at?
Well, it's more actually that there's a lot of interest from around the world about trying to grow their own markets, and about saying, well, we know that this is legal in a number of places. I think the world's largest exporter at the moment is the UK, funnily enough. So it's about saying, can we tap into those existing markets? It isn't about us saying, well, there's a brand new product here. It's about saying, actually, this is a new way of regulating this, a slightly more attractive way perhaps for businesses, and say, look, we're going to stop competing really with some of those big players on a global stage.
You're quoted as equating it to the growth and development of the e-gaming industry on the Isle of Man. Do you really realistically see a future being that quite exponential in that same way?
Well, I think it all comes down to the level of interest that we see from consultations like this, the level of private investment that might be out there. But based on the work that's been undertaken already, we do actually within the business agency see this as a real opportunity for the Isle of Man. It could be quite big. Obviously, you can't predict the future. You know, if I could, I'd be definitely in a higher paying job than this one. But no, unfortunately, we can't say for certain this is definitely going to happen. But really, I think if we can get the regulatory regime right, if we can make sure we engage with people in the right way, then absolutely this could be really a big deal for the Isle of Man.
Would you want the Isle of Man to be seen like it is almost a centre for e-gaming, a centre for cannabis cultivation or hemp cultivation?
It's a good question. I personally think that, yes, I would very much like the Isle of Man to be seen as that place where you can produce kind of high-tech goods, because essentially that's what we're talking about here. This isn't really about growing necessarily. It is about that medicinal production line. So really you're talking about quite high-tech industry. We're normally pretty good at that. Actually, our manufacturing sectors are all about high-value, low-volume goods. We're very good at that anyway. So really it's building on some of the things that are already our strengths, good regulations, good high-skilled, high-paying, high-quality work. And really it's just trying to apply some of those skills that we already have to a slightly new field.
word field is quite useful there. What about the land? Do we have obviously we have a lot of green spaces, but is it usable for this kind of production?
That's a very good question, and I think that's one of the things that we're hoping to engage with people on now over the next couple of weeks and months, because there's two streams of interest really. So you have the interest in growing industrial hemp, which is what you think of as your kind of fields of crops. That may have issues with it, but where we see the real value is going to be in the high intensity, high tech kind of arena. So you're talking about indoor growing, quite a high energy intensive, high farming, high intensity kind of stuff. And that really isn't about masses of land space. That's more about the methods and the way that they actually grow this stuff. So
a lot of investment though.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It is going to be. And I think that's why this consultation is so important, because if we are really looking to capture some of that big ticket investment, we've got to make sure that we get the regulatory regime right in the first place.
So who are you hoping to hear from?
Well, I think we're hoping to hear from people that have already expressed previous interest, who are already engaged in the process, about those private investors, people who are looking to set up their own production lines on the island, looking to invest in it. We're also looking to
Would they be people from the island or people coming over for that purpose?
Hopefully both. I'm aware of a mixture of people who are interested in some of this. I'm also interested, obviously, in anyone that is interested in the industrial hemp side of things as well, because obviously the regulatory regime we're proposing will cover a wide range of different products. And so we are really interested in any stakeholders who have a potential interest in developing this industry.